tonight. Vehicles line Saskatchewan highways as people protest against a rise in the federal carbon tax.
We need supportive housing.
A Regina mom says time is running out for her son, who has complex mental health needs and no place to live. Plus, the spring melt is here. We'll have some tips to protect your property from potential flooding.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Tuesday, April 2nd, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. I'm Ethan Williams, in for Sam McKeag. Thanks for joining us tonight. Cars, trucks, RVs, and tractors all are parked along some parts of the Trans-Canada Highway today. The drivers were there to send a message and express their anger against the carbon tax from Saskatchewan's western to eastern border. Alexander Kwan has the latest.
If you were out at all yesterday, you probably saw this. Vehicles sporting Axe the Tax signs and Canadian flags, as protesters opposed to the federal price on carbon voiced their displeasure. At the borders of Alberta and Manitoba, protesters were able to slow traffic down to 30 kilometers an hour. And while the crowds were smaller, RCMP say there were more protests today, including near Lloydminster on Highway 16. Mounties say they're working with rally organizers to make sure everyone stays safe. Police say if you plan to drive along the Trans-Canada to Alberta or Manitoba, expect delays. The protests come in response to a recent hike to the federal carbon tax. It works out to roughly 3 cents per litre of gas. For as much noise as the protesters are making, one economist says this is all part of a plan.
So we know gas prices rise and fall at 3.3 cents a litre. Now, if you hadn't seen the news about the carbon price, you might not have had a big reaction to it because it's actually smaller than a lot of the other times gas prices go up.
Brett Dolter says the slow increase of the price of carbon is by design. It's meant to ease people into reducing their reliance on things like gasoline and give time for alternative technology to be developed. For those struggling with increases to their cost of living, that explanation is tough to hear.
There's not a lot of people in the community that do support the carbon tax. I haven't actually heard anybody that has come to me and said, you know, I'm really happy we're paying this carbon tax.
And while the price on carbon has now gone up, the federal rebate meant to offset the carbon tax has also increased. For a family of 4 in Saskatchewan, that quarterly check could be up to $376. For a single adult, $188. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
And the federal government is promising billions of dollars in spending to tackle Canada's housing crisis. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau made the announcement today ahead of the federal budget set for April 16th. And as Olivia Stefanovich reports, the money comes with strings attached.
Good to see you guys.
The Prime Minister says the federal government is ready to open up the checkbook to build more homes across the country.
Canadians need help with housing.
But in order to access the cash, provinces, along with municipalities, need to play by Ottawa's rules.
The federal government is stepping up with real investments, and we expect provinces to do their part as well.
In the upcoming federal budget, Trudeau says the government will launch a $6 billion housing infrastructure fund. Money to build and upgrade water, wastewater, and stormwater systems. $1 billion will go to municipalities for urgent needs. The rest split among the provinces and territories, but only if those governments meet certain conditions by next year.
We're not just going to put this money on the table, wash our hands of the issue and walk away. We're going to insist that our partners make certain kinds of changes that make it easier and faster to build homes in this country.
Ottawa is tying its new infrastructure dollars to housing density. It's also compelling municipalities to change its zoning rules to access a new public transit fund, demanding more housing units around transportation lines and post-secondary schools.
If provinces don't step up, if they don't do this, the money should come to the provinces who are doing the work.
The move is being welcomed by at least one premier and mayor.
Well, I think if they come with a checkbook, it's fair. They're not asking us to do anything that we weren't doing anyway.
What is kind of, I think, notable in this case is that this government is really going potentially in the weeds of governance issues in the provinces.
This expert says the biggest challenge will be negotiating with the rest of the provinces.
The relationships between the federal government and the provincial premiers are quite strained.
This is the latest announcement by the Prime Minister to create pre-budget buzz on his terms, before the rest of the government's spending plans are revealed later this month and critics get their turn. Olivia Stefanovic, CBC News, Ottawa.
A Regina mother is raising concerns about the lack of care her son is receiving from the province. He has mental health issues and is fighting with addictions, and she fears for his life if he doesn't get help soon. Louise Big Eagle has their story.
He was born very prematurely. He functions around an 8-year-old level.
Pam Sanderson is desperate. She fears her son Keith won't survive much longer if he doesn't get the help he needs. She says he was born with a cognitive disability. He now suffers from mental illness, addiction, permanent psychosis, and fits of violence. Keith was recently kicked out of a hotel he was staying in.
The owner, I don't know if it's her husband or who it is, but he said that he was going to call all of the other motels and hotels not to rent to him because he's bad. And I thought, that's horrible.
CBC has been covering Sanderson's calls for help since she went to the legislature back in 2018. She says there are places in North Battleford and elsewhere for people with these multiple complex needs, but they're full.
Wait list for North Battleford is probably over a year long. And does he have a year? No. He's just like a little sitting duck inside that room. So I've called up to North Battleford. Dr. Isa's put a referral in for North Battleford. It's just about getting him to a better place. Let's see if he will actually stay away from the drugs, if he's off of them for a long period of time.
Sanderson says sometimes her son will wander the streets in the cold weather and sleep outside. Shelters don't know how to handle him. She's hoping someone will help Keith before it's too late.
How many other parents are going through exactly what I'm going through every day with my son and not being able to support him and watching them suffer? And it is really suffering. It is. I mean, sometimes he's happy, but he's lonely. Nobody wants anything to do with him. And that's where we need, housing. We need supportive housing, big apartment buildings with, case management on every single floor for all those individuals. That's my dream for not just my son, but for everybody in the province that are like my son.
In a statement, the Ministry of Health tells CBC there are services in Regina for individuals with persistent mental health and addictions challenges who are in need of longer-term support. Not all of these services may be suitable in every case, depending on the individual's level of complexity and need. Keith is currently staying in another Regina motel, but his mother says he isn't getting the care he needs. Louise Big Eagle, CBC News, Regina.
Meanwhile, a Saskatoon centre that helps that city's most vulnerable is cutting its hours because it's running out of money. Prairie Harm Reduction runs a drop-in centre on 20th Street. It's a place where people who live on the streets can access coffee, food, and washrooms and get connected with supports. The centre also runs a supervised drug consumption site, which aims to prevent overdose deaths and the spread of disease among people living with addictions. The organization relies on funding and donations to operate, but more people have been using its services recently, and that is causing a money shortage.
This was an incredibly hard decision. It's not one that I was hoping to have to make this year, but the reality is with hundreds of more people needing services, our building and our staff currently cannot manage.
The centre will close at 4 p.m. instead of 10 p.m. starting next month. DeMong says the organization has about $65,000 to operate this year, but it needs closer to $450,000. A Saskatoon City Committee has passed several recommendations from a safety audit into the intersection of Wiggins Avenue and College Drive. It follows the death of a 33-year-old cyclist last year and a fulsome response from the cycling community. Natasha Fox was hit and killed by a cement truck in May. About a month later, the city commissioned the safety audit. It laid out 14 recommendations, and the city supports all but 3, including a painted bike box and a restriction on red light right turns. Fox's husband says he's disappointed some recommendations weren't suggested by city administration.
It was baffling. The report came about because Natasha was killed on a bicycle. And to read the report, which had recommendations that could prevent deaths, cyclists from being killed, and then have the city say that they do not recommend what the expert recommended was very confusing and frustrating, actually.
The recommendations discussed today will have to be approved by council. It can consider all the recommendations, even the 3 that were initially defeated. That will happen at the end of the month. The provincial government has changed the rules on how home-brewed alcohol products are served. People can now serve homemade beer and wine at special family events and with special occasion permits from SLGA. This includes weddings, reunions, or other special events. Event organizers will also not be allowed to charge guests a fee for homemade wine or beer.
It'll be nice to tell people that they're able to do that, especially now at a time when everything is becoming a lot more expensive for Canadians, and one of the most important and sometimes pricey days of your life, your wedding. It's nice to be able to save a little bit on the liquor tab and make a quality product that people enjoy.
Bonnet says homemade wines and beers can be half the price as those purchased from a liquor store. And the province is also putting money toward fixing labor shortages in Saskatchewan's hospitality industry. $400,000 is going to Hospitality Saskatchewan, the organization that represents hotels, restaurants, and casinos, among other businesses. One Regina hotel owner says the money will help find ways to recruit people here and out of province.
We hired a new housekeeping manager. He started with us yesterday, Anup from Nepal, and he was working in Banff, and he had already come here on a work visa, and the programs that are in place here in Saskatchewan actually attracted him to come to Saskatchewan, start with us, manage that department, giving him a line of sight to eventually having a permanent residency. So there's tremendous opportunity out there, not necessarily bringing them in fully international, but that plus also people who are already here.
The province says the money will help develop other solutions unique to the hospitality industry. That includes expanding leadership training with workers in Indigenous communities. Well, it was not a 2023 to remember for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, but one of the very few bright spots was the play of second-year receiver Samuel Emilus, and his great season was rewarded with a contract extension. The Canadian receiver finished the year with 70 catches for almost 1,100 yards and 6 touchdowns. Emilus was a first-round pick of the Riders in 2022 after a solid season with Louisiana Tech the year before. This now gives the Riders a great foundation at receiver, something Emilus is quite excited about.
Tip my hat to the scouting department in jail for, putting good receivers, especially Canadian receivers. Drafting Canadian receivers, and obviously, it's a competition, and but like I always say, we don't really see it as as a Canadian receiver type of thing versus American receiver type of thing. We just put our head down and work.
Training camp begins in 5 weeks. The Riders begin the preseason at home on May 20th against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Well, it seems everyone, including the Gophers, are starting to come out of hibernation in the province. The warm weather also means those snowbanks are melting into giant puddles. After the break, we'll tell you how you can keep your property dry as those puddles grow. And you'll want to prep your home pretty quick because weather specialist Tyreek Reed says there's even warmer weather coming. Stay with us. We're back after the break. Welcome back. Well, temperatures are expected to warm up through the week for much of the province, and that means the big melt is on. These warmer conditions come as some areas of the province saw over 50 centimeters of snow last month. Now all those snowbanks are melting and running into the sewer system. Saskatoon's stormwater utility manager says there are ways you can reduce the risk of flooding.
removing snow around the foundation of your house, moving snow away from the edges of your lot, so making sure those drainage paths are functioning. You can check your roof, make sure your eaves troughs are functioning. You can make sure your downspouts are down, and making sure that the area around the downspout is clear of snow, so the water can drain away from the property.
McMahon says you should make sure your snow drains away from your house toward the street to prevent basement flooding. City crews are working to clear catch basins and thaw frozen puddles to make sure everything drains properly.
The weather update is brought to you by Capital Ford Lincoln. Customer Appreciation Month is on now.
And weather specialist Tyreek Reed joins us now. And I thought the weekend was nice, Tyreek, but things really getting warm today.
Oh, yeah, Ethan. You know, it almost feels too good to be true, almost like a late April Fool's joke or something. We're seeing daytime highs near 20 in some areas of the province today, like over in Leader and Maple Creek. In Swift Current, daytime highs are around 16 degrees, and this is mainly to the southwest. This is really our warm spot today in the province. But of course, we're still seeing this warmth throughout the entire province, really. Up in the north, we're seeing daytime highs above seasonal as well. Usually they should be around 0 degrees this time of the year, but over in Collins Bay, they're sitting at 5 degrees. Down in south and central, of course, we're hitting double digits. So right now in Regina, we're sitting at 10 degrees. Same thing in Saskatoon. And as mentioned, as we head further west, that's really when we start to feel that warmth and that heat over in Leader, where they're sitting at 18 degrees right now. So yeah, what a difference a couple of days can make. Now, of course, we did see a lot of clearing in the province today, but we're seeing that cloud cover come in the north. Along with that, we're also seeing some precipitation make its way in. This is mainly rainfall that will continue to head through the north as we head further into tonight, and throughout the day tomorrow as well. We'll still be seeing that rainfall. As we head into tomorrow night, we're also going to be met with some precipitation in the southwest that will head into central parts of the province throughout the night on Wednesday into Thursday morning before tapering off on Thursday. Now, when we're talking about rainfall totals in the north, it's really going to be in the far north where we see a lot of that accumulation. Down south, it's mainly going to be situated in the west and in central areas. We don't have to worry about any of that rainfall here in Regina, but they will have to worry about that over in Kindersley. And once again, even in Saskatoon as well, we'll be seeing that rain. Didn't have to worry about winds too much today if you went outside. It was a nice calm day today in terms of wind speeds, but that will start to pick up as we head into tomorrow. Those winds will be gusting between 40 and 50 kilometers an hour in some areas, and we'll still be feeling those wind speeds as we head into Thursday as well. They will be quite strong. But of course, the weather is going to get much warmer, believe it or not. We're looking at a daytime high of 21 degrees here in Regina tomorrow, and that's going to remain pretty consistent. Of course, we'll have to watch out for those winds. They will be pretty strong. And as we head into next week as well, we're still seeing daytime highs in the double digits. In Saskatoon, seeing a daytime high tomorrow of 20 degrees. Got to watch out for that rain on Thursday, of course. But as we head further into the week, we'll still be met with mainly warm temperatures well above seasonal. So I don't know. I think it's time for me to put away that winter jacket, Ethan.
Yeah, 20 degrees, rain at the beginning of April. Just not so common for this time of year around here.
Exactly.
All right. Thanks so much, Tyreek.
No problem.
Well, the warm weather in Japan means that country's cherry blossom season is underway. Peak viewing times vary according to region, but most festivals begin around the end of March and can last until May. The weather, of course, plays a major role in the timing of the season. This year, many people have rushed to see the flowers early because bad weather is in the forecast. We're back after the break. An Israeli airstrike has killed 7 international aid workers in Gaza. The group was working with the charity World Central Kitchen, which has been supplying food to the besieged territory. They're the first foreign relief workers killed in Gaza, which is becoming an increasingly dangerous place for those working to provide assistance. CBC's Chris Brown now with the latest.
Video at the attack site showed a hole in the roof of a vehicle right next to the clearly marked World Central Kitchen logo. Israeli media claims a 3-car convoy had just made an aid delivery and was stalked overhead by a military drone hunting for a Hamas militant. It fired once at each car, with those inside scrambling to get to the next vehicle in a desperate effort to save themselves before all 7 were eventually killed. Eyewitness Shoaib Al-Jaras said the vehicles were distributing food. We saw that the Israelis had targeted the foreigners inside the car. In Rafah, the workers' passports confirmed who'd been killed.
Hey, this is Zomi and Chef Olivia.
Among the dead, 43-year-old Zomi Frankham from Australia, a longtime volunteer, a Polish man, 3 British nationals, a dual Canadian-American citizen, and their Palestinian driver, who was buried Tuesday. Israel's prime minister said the aid convoy was attacked in error. There was a tragic case of our forces unintentionally hitting innocent people in the Gaza Strip. This happens in wartime, said Benjamin Netanyahu. From Israel's key allies, there were expressions of outrage, but no other repercussions.
But we expect a broader investigation to be conducted and to be done so in a swift and comprehensive manner.
While these are the first foreign aid workers killed in Gaza, almost 200 Palestinians working with the UN have also died, along with civilians trying to get food, making such deaths an increasingly frequent occurrence rather than an exception, says this former Israeli peace negotiator.
We have seen incident after incident where attempts to get supplies in have ended up seeing innocent civilians killed. Now those delivering the aid have also fallen prey to those Israeli strikes.
World Central Kitchen and other private aid agencies have now stopped operations in Gaza, and ships sent from Cyprus with more than 200 tons of aid have turned back.
It's very hard not to see this as some kind of strategy of using aid as a weapon.
Again today, the UN warned of a looming famine in Gaza and complained of obstacles Israel has created in getting aid in and distributing it. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
And Tyreek is back with one last look at our forecast.
Yes, still feeling that warmth tonight in Regina, seeing temperatures above seasonal as you're heading to sleep. And in the morning as well, we'll be starting our day with a lot of sunshine and also warm temperatures. But of course, once we get into the afternoon, we'll start to get closer to that daytime high of 20 degrees. But of course, it will be pretty gusty outside, so you'll want to hold on to your hats outside in Regina. And of course, over in Saskatoon as well, seeing lows around 4 degrees tonight, very warm and above seasonal. And of course, as we head into tomorrow morning, we're still going to be feeling that warmth in Saskatoon with a bit of sunshine. And as we head into the afternoon, getting closer to that daytime high of 20 degrees right before the rain starts at night. Ethan?
Yeah, that's right. It's the race to 20. Who will get there first? All right. Thanks, Tyreek.
No problem.
And that is it for us tonight. For News Anytime, of course, you can always head to our website, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or download the CBC News app. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.